Hi, welcome back to Box Delights and welcome to part 2 of our PAX Emancipation playthrough. I have a feeling I might be saying this a few more times, but I've got a correction to make from last time. The end result's the same, but it's just an explanation I made. So, we syndicated, remember we had a situation like this, and we syndicated Kokuri Kurishatan. But I did it the wrong way round. I took the agent and paid the costs and said I didn't have any money. But in fact, I did have money because I've got 1 gold here. The way to do it is pay the cost and then place the agent. So I actually had 1 gold, which could have done this, and then placed the agent. So the end result's the same, but what it meant is I could have actually taken any one of these 4s. I could have syndicated any one of these. Made no difference in the end because this is the one I wanted to syndicate anyway. But look out for that. So pay the cost first and then move your topmost agent. With that in mind, let's push on. It's the Philanthropists' turn. And you'll notice the green player starts with an agent here. When we westernised as Parliament, it said we must have a red agent. There's a red agent here, right? For the philanthropists being green, it says they must have a green agent. Okay. So we could potentially do a westernised here, for example. Some operations, though, continue to ask for a red agent. So although westernised is green agent, Suffrage asks for a red agent, irrespective of which colour you're playing. What I'd quite like to do, though, is continue to secure up Europe and the colonies. And that means continuing to break down barriers and to westernise, liberating these slaves. So I've got my eye on this card here, Nada Parliamentarianism. So let's do that. Let's syndicate. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to cost me 4. So remember, pay the costs first. 1, 2, 3, 4. What's interesting about the philanthropists, given they're traders, they're good with money, they've got a special ability. It says, may install agents from capital, wealth, or debt. So I could now install the agents from debt. Remember, everybody else has to take it from the topmost spot. This is Rifa al-Tatawi, a pioneer of Nada parliamentarianism. Nada means the awakening or the Arab Renaissance or Enlightenment. It says, after 5 years in France, this Egyptian scholar pioneered a westernization adapted to Islamic values, a cultural renaissance called al-Nada. Its credo included anti-colonialism, women's education, and Western-style parliamentarianism, checking the powers of the Sultan. It's interesting, this game, because although it's a game, all right, we're not reenacting history. I mean, you could play this game without even looking at this stuff and just going for the mechanics of everything, theme ignored. But what Eklund does with his games is he dives deep into the theme and, of course, puts his own slant on things and picks out aspects of the themes that he thinks is important. I'll quote him here when he says, how slavery changed from being everywhere legal to being everywhere a crime against individual rights and natural law is the story of this game. So it's not just about the chattel slaves of the colonies of North America, it's about the global idea of slavery, and the definition of slavery is grey. You can argue that slavery still exists today, although it's illegal, it still exists. And he talks about serfdom and how he considers this a form of slavery because the people are not free to leave the land. Although they were paid and appeared to have freedom, they were paid sometimes just with tokens that they could only spend on the land that they were tied to. So although they weren't explicitly owned and could be bought and sold, they were kind of bought and sold with the land. They were part and parcel of it. They weren't truly free. So as you dive into this game, you'll explore all sorts of cultures as one might expect from such a broad scope spanning 150 years. But mechanically, what's interesting about this card is it gives me access to 3 different operations. It gives me access to literacy, westernize, and suffrage. For now, though, we're going to learn the lessons of Parliament and not get stuck in debt. We're going to fundraise. And all we're going to do is accumulate capital, put ourselves in a decent financial position. That's the 2 actions. And now we move to ops. And I'd like to take a suffrage op. It is now available. Suffrage has a precondition. It says there must be a red agent, or there's no white right-wing barriers. Everywhere's got white-wing barriers right now. Remember, the Underground Railroad can also help us here. Or you must have a majority, more tokens of your colour than there are slaves, plus pieces of other colours. So, for example, here, green has a majority. There's 2 green, 1 white. Here, they would not have a majority. There'd be 1 green versus 2 of others. This is an elephant action, and I'm going to move the elephant back to, it doesn't matter whether we choose Nantes or London, because we have a majority here. Let's just move it to London. There's a red agent, so that satisfies it just fine. And the cost is the number of adjacent slavers squared. So in Europe, like I say, it doesn't matter which port I chose. The number of slavers squared. There's only 1 slaver here. We got rid of 1, so the cost is 1 squared, 1. If there were 2 slavers here, it would cost us 4 gold. 2 squared is 4. So let's pay the 1 gold. And our prize for the suffrage operation is claim or regress a barrier. And we could get rid of the embargo. Embargoes threaten merchant ships, but ours is protected by marine, so at the moment that's not doing anything. So instead I'm going to rid Europe of this red barrier. Gabelle tax farmers. And with an underground railroad, that can really help us. We've rid Europe of left-wing barriers. It goes to the green player. The slaver should be with red. I'm going to put them like this and put a couple of meeples here to show this is red's victory, this is green's. That's our ops complete. Let's roll a d6 for the elephant phase. It's a 5. The elephant doesn't move because we took an elephant action, suffrage. But the 5th card in the western column, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is removed from the game. Now we do the hate roll, elephants in London. It's a 3. This does nothing because the 3 would get rid of a merchantman, but we've got a marine here. And there's no frustrated icon, this jagged edge around the number 3. So nothing else happens. Pogrom roll doesn't happen. We don't have a sphere with 2 anarchy. Likewise for revolution, and now we market refresh. So you can see the turns do scoot along if you know what you're doing. This one returns up here. Now it's back to Parliament, back to the red player, and I promised I'd show you how to get out of debt. We're going to use up our whole turn. Actually, there's 2 ways of doing this, but it'll take 2 actions. What you could do is divest, pull this thing back, then do capital accumulation, and do this. Then we could do fundraiser again. We don't divest this time, but we do collateral. So pull 1 down from capital, 1 up from debt, and then capital accumulation. So we've ended up with 4 at the bottom, 2 at the top, and we've pulled back 1 agent. The other way of doing it works just as well. So put things back how they were. First we do a free syndicate action, like this. Then we do the fundraiser, so we divest, pull these 2 back to wealth, and then do capital accumulation. So we've ended up in exactly the same position, but just a roundabout way, if you like. It depends if you want to do syndicate fundraiser or 2 fundraisers. But I want to keep this here as it goes. So what I'm going to do is leave these here. I'm not going to syndicate, but I'm going to take the fundraiser action. Because as well as divesting agents that are over here, we can divest agents which are up here. Now, when we martyred this agent, remember this agent got killed, we put it here as a dissident. You actually divest that agent and replace it with a meeple of your colour. Right, so there's a little bit of compensation for losing your agent. You get a dissident. We'll come back to those in a minute. I know I'm introducing the rules a little bit at a time. So this is a dissident. We'll come back to those shortly. This agent goes back, so you divest it into the wealth box of your board. So this should be sitting here right now in the wealth box, this martyred agent. Not only that, I can divest these other agents. So there's a marine sitting here, there's an agent sitting here. I'm going to leave that one there as it goes, but I'm going to divest this marine. I've got 2 agents sitting here in the wealth box. So when I do capital accumulation now, I'm getting 2. And for my second action, I can fundraise again. This time we're not divesting, but we can do collateral. Move 2 down from capital, 2 up from debt, and then capital accumulation. We've got 4 capital and only 3 debt. Pretty neat, huh? Now before we move on, I should say that as the red player, as a bonus, every time you fundraise, you can take a bonus maritime action. So we could be moving marines about, we can install a marine, and if we've got a marine and a raider in the same location, then we could be doing gunboat diplomacy as well every time we fundraise. So make use of that as the Parliament player. You might be fundraising 40% of the time, so you can see that a bonus maritime action for red is pretty significant. So we could put our marine back if we wished, but we don't want to. Instead, we're moving to the ops phase, and we're going to be taking the westernize action. We also have the literacy operation. This just allows you to add a dissident where you have a red agent. We don't want to do that just yet, but we're going to westernize. There's also this manumission operation. It's exactly the same as westernize. The difference is westernize has no cost, but it has preconditions. Manumission is the same, it adds a freedman, but it has no preconditions, but it does have a cost. It goes to barriers. And that's pretty neat as it goes, because it means I can, liberate slaves all over the world. I don't have to meet any precondition, but it's going to cost. So if I would liberate these slaves in the Congo, for example, then it would cost me 3, because there's 3 barriers. Now we want to westernize over in the colonies again. But you say, well, there's no red agent here. No, we martyred it. But there's another precondition. So it's have a red agent or have no red barriers. Well, there are red barriers. There's 2 of them. But we've got the Underground Railroad. And the Underground Railroad means because there's no red barriers now in Europe, we can act as if there's no red barriers in the colonies. So we can take, let's bring the elephant over to Virginia, we can take the westernize operation as if there were no red barriers, despite the fact there being, and we can add a freedman. We can liberate another 2 million slaves. These underground railroads, because there's no left-wing barriers here, it's like we're helping liberate escaped fugitives from slavery. That's ops complete. Let's push on to the elephant phase. Roll 1d6. So 2, the elephant doesn't move. We lose the second card in the Western market. It's a shame, I kind of like that one, because it had the suffrage icon and plebiscite. We'll come to that in a minute, actually. There you go, that's gone. Now we do the hate roll. There's 2 uncovered spaces in Virginia. There's the agent and, of course, the port. So that's 2 dice. So 4 and a 3. We're lucky, that does nothing. Just thinking we do need to be careful of this embargo moving forward in Europe. Yeah, maybe I can do something about that. We don't have a pogrom roll. There's no sphere with 2 anarchy. No revolution, market refresh. Now our green agent is at risk from the market refresh. There's a cultural diffusion arrow here. But what I want to do now is introduce some new concepts to you. Green's going to syndicate. And we're doing this to show you some rules. I'm not sure which way things are going to go, so I'm going to give myself a couple of options with green. I'm going to syndicate a couple of times. There's 2 cards I'm interested in. These 2. I'm kind of looking a little bit ahead here towards a revolution. So maybe now's the time to introduce revolutions, dissidents, and what it means for one of these ideas to be viable. Remember these revolutionaries. And if I'm interested in maybe a revolution in the colonies or in Europe, North America or Europe, We've got George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. And we've got Napoleon and General Lafayette. Each of these cards has two icons, these freedom icons. We've got lock, candle. We've got candle, feather, lock, candle, candle, feather. Okay. A freedom pair is over in the splays. For something to be viable, it needs a freedom pair in one of the splays. Remember our two splays, Bill of Rights, General Will. Once you put a card, so once you legislate and get an idea, say in the Bill of Rights, you place it one way up or the other. These create a freedom pair, candle, feather, or if I put it this way up, candle, lock. Okay. Candle, lock, freedom pair makes this, the US Civil War, candle, lock, viable, okay, as a revolution. If I look over in the market, ideas can be viable for legislation too. So this one here has candle, lock. So if I have candle, lock, that creates the freedom pair that makes this viable. The other thing is, although this is now viable, like candle, lock, it's only viable in the Bill of Rights. It's not viable in the General Will. So that's what viable means. Is an idea viable? Does a freedom pair exist in either the Bill of Rights or the General Will? The General Will is ideas that have been passed by the majority. It's the will of the majority. This is how democracies work. But what it means is sometimes ideas get through that benefit the majority but not the minority. In fact, the minority may lose out because of it. The Bill of Rights, on the other hand, this represents ideas that are fundamental to what's right. It doesn't have to benefit the majority. It's just, as Eklund puts it, it encodes self-evident truths and scientific discoveries about the nature of a proper society. These are things that should be because that's how a proper society should be. So do you see the difference? Now it's up to us as we play the game which ideas go where and how we therefore construct our Bill of Rights and how we construct our General Will. And every time we take the legislate action, we're placing cards in these splays of viable ideas. And these splays get bigger, right? Now I've created candle lock and lock lock. Or if I do it this way up, candle feather and then feather lock. Okay, so you're going to build up this display creating freedom pairs. That's two freedom pairs, making these ideas and revolutions viable. The problem is, at the start of the game, there's no freedom pairs. This display and this display, they only have one icon each. So we can't have any ideas viable, we can't have any revolutions viable, nothing can make it over into these displays, but there's a way out. There's two operations, lawsuit and plebiscite. The lawsuit will add an idea to the Bill of Rights. The plebiscite will add an idea to the General Will. So lawsuit represents an enlightenment principle. Right? We're doing something for the good of people. This could be slavers suing their masters. For plebiscite, this is like a referendum. The term plebiscite kind of has negative connotations. I'm not sure if it does in North America. But it's like a referendum, right? A general vote. But plebiscite tends to be something like we had a referendum over here on Brexit, right? Should Britain leave the European Union? And that was a genuinely free public referendum. A plebiscite is more like we're going to push through some legislation and we're going to call it the general will of the people. We've had a referendum, but really people were only intended to vote one way. So that's what a plebiscite is. It's like a referendum. Incidentally, that should be here. Green. Where we're headed is we're going to syndicate twice for green. First, we're going to pay one. Take an agent. Remember, we can take from any box when you're green. We're going to syndicate here. Then for our second, I'm looking for a candle. There's a candle here. There's a candle here. And there's, oh my goodness, plebiscite action all the way up here. So that's going to cost 1, 2, 3. That's going to cost 5. So we pay 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take an agent. Place it here on Republicanism. It's a pretty good card as it goes. So we've installed Uncle Tom's Cabin. Uncle Tom's Cabin was a realistic portrayal of the effects of slavery on individuals beyond those directly involved as masters, traders and slaves. It was a sentimental novel, an 18th century literary genre found purely in the West with no equivalent in the East. And on here is the lawsuit operation. And we've syndicated Republicanism. Benjamin Franklin. This famed printer used his press to educate the moral virtues he believed essential for the survival of the new republic, including the relief of free Negroes unlawfully held in bondage. In free governments, the rulers are the servants and the people their superiors and sovereigns. The good news here is it gives us access to both the plebiscite and the lawsuit operation. So now when we move to ops, we've got 3 ops available to us. First, let's do suffrage down here. Suffrage has a cost, slavers squared. We're going to do it here in nonce. It says as a precondition we need a red agent, there's not, or a majority, we have a majority, or no white barrier. There is a white barrier in both these. But for suffrage, for the cost of 1, we can claim or regress a barrier. Let's claim this embargo. We don't want this taking out our merchantman who's now unprotected. That's another victory point, but it has cost us 1. Next, we're going to take the lawsuit operation. I'm going to add an idea to the Bill of Rights. This is the lawsuit operation we're taking over here on Uncle Tom's Cabin. Adding an idea to a splay that's not viable is called capitalization. You can only capitalize an idea that's lower, so a lower cost, and on the same side as your syndicated lawsuit card. So we're going to capitalize this one. Quilombo das Palmeiras. Quilombo is a Brazilian hinterland settlement composed of escaped slaves and Portuguese soldiers escaping military conscription. Palmeiras was the largest, and led by Ganga Zumba here. Palmeiras was the largest and lasted for almost a century before suppression. Now the cost is equal to the number of agents on this card squared. So 0 for us. If it was 1, it would be 1. If it was 2, it would be 4. So now we've got to decide which way we want to place it, with the lock at the bottom or the comet at the bottom. Now in addition, when you globalize the first idea into the Bill of Rights, you become its founding father. And at this time, you get to choose which way up you want this to be. Do I want to create a lock candle pair, a comet lock, or maybe comet comet or candle comet? Let's say I choose candle lock. Okay. So we've founded the Bill of Rights. This is now set for the rest of the game. I can't change this. Okay. So we've created a candle lock pair. The impact icon does nothing though. When you globalize, there's no impact. When you bring an idea in via legislation, so legislating a viable idea, then the impact icon will have an effect. Then it tells us after completing our lawsuit, we get a bonus. And the bonus depends on what colour icon we've just placed in that splay. We placed a red one, right? This red lock. So, red for red player means nationalise, for green player means privatise. To nationalise, if there were an agent on here, let's say, when that was globalised, nationalising means taking that agent and placing it on the red player's wealth. Privatising means taking that agent off another player's board and putting it back in wealth. Okay? When this is here, this nationalised agent, red player can spend it, and then when it heads back to debt, it goes straight back over to green player again. Okay, so that's nationalise, privatise. If the icon were black, then we would get the legislation bonus. We'd be able to do an extra legislate action at this point. And in either case, whether it's black or red, if you wish, you can't privatise, you can't legislate, then we can do a fundraiser. So that's what green's going to do. So we get to divest and then accumulate capital. So as it goes, I might just divest agent that's on Uncle Tom's Cabin back to wealth, and then fundraise. Okay, perfect. Now my next op is republicanism. So we do exactly the same thing again, except this time we're not going to do the lawsuit, we're going to do the plebiscite. We're going to have a referendum, and we're going to have a referendum about rationalism. This here is René Descartes. Cartesian rationalism uses reason to develop the natural sciences and an intrinsic theory of values to develop morality. Contrasted to empiricism, which emphasizes sensory experience, knowledge is derived a priori from innate ideas through deductive reasoning. This Western idea of rationalism is going in the general will. Both ways are candles, so it doesn't matter which way up we place it. There's no cost, once more. There's no agents there. But as founding father, I do want to make sure it's this way up. So we've got candle lock and candle feather. And that's just in case we have a revolution, because they need candle feather or candle lock. Okay. But we will get our bonus fundraising action. Perfect. Do that again. So we're not divesting. We're using our collateral to convert debt into wealth, and then we're doing capital accumulation. That's the plebiscite and lawsuit operations complete. And we started 2 splays, we're on our way. Okay, let's do the elephant phase. That was a lot of explanation. So we moved the elephant. Remember, we took the suffrage operation. But this time this elephant walk roll does nothing. You don't even need to roll the dice because there was already gaps in the market. We don't need to create another gap. So we move past the elephant phase. It says walk elephant if it hasn't moved. It did move. Cultural diffusion if no gaps. There are gaps. Okay, so hate roll in the elephant's port. This time there's 2 empty spaces. An admin and the port. So let's roll. 4 and a 2. Pretty much cleared out all the barriers here, so it was only a 1 that was going to hit. No pogrom, no revolution, market refresh. Let's fill these gaps. And reset our agents. It's red player's turn. We're going to take another turn. And we're going to shore up the colonies. So my first action is going to be a post action. The cost is equal to the barriers. If there's already an admin here, it will be martyred. Otherwise, we're going to add an admin. So let's do the cost first. 3 barriers, 3 cost. 1, 2, 3. Then we have to lose our most valuable agent. We're installing in here where the elephant, this is an elephant action, so we're going to move the elephant to Virginia and install. Our second action, we're going to fundraise. I'm not worried about posting a marine here. And then we move to ops phase, and this time we're going to use Gokuri Krishnatan for its literacy op. Literacy requires a red agent. We just posted one in the colonies. It's an elephant action, so I can only do it in the colonies. And I add a dissident. Grab 1 from the supply, and now we've got 2 dissidents in the colonies. Now we do the elephant walk phase. It's moved, so he's not walking, but we still do the roll to see where there's cultural diffusion. It's a 1. There's no gaps in the market. Remember, it's always the West, so Uncle Tom's Cabin is going. Now we'll do the hate roll. It's a 5. 5 says remove a white unit. There aren't any white units, So, and it's got the frustration border around. So that means we add anarchy. Take one anarchy from the red player, place it in the colonies. There's no pogrom roll, there's no sphere with 2 anarchy, but now we do have a revolution. If we have a sphere with dissidence and anarchy, we launch a revolution. We could be launching multiple revolutions. We're launching a revolution here in the colonies. Remember these revolutionaries? Here's the one for the colonies. We've got either the American Revolution or the US Civil War. One of these two things is now going to begin, which depends on the dissidents. If there's more red dissidents than white dissidents, then it's a left-wing civil rights revolt, and we'll have George Washington. If there are more white dissidents than red, then the one with the white frame, it's a slave revolt, and we'll have Abraham Lincoln. If there's a tie, so if there's no more reds and whites, or maybe there's a green dissident here, right, no more red, no more white, then, or if there's one white, one red, then you can choose. Okay. As it goes, we've got 2 red dissidents, so we've got a civil rights revolt, the American Revolution. This is going to go in the market. It's like an idea now. Whether it goes in the west or the east of the market depends on whether it's a west or an east revolution. This is a revolution happening in the west, so it's going to go in the west spot of the market. And it always replaces an existing card. We don't worry about the gaps. And on each one of these cards is a number in a red circle. Looks like a blood spot. It's called a firebrand. The card with the lowest firebrand, which is this one here, is replaced. 22 is the lowest number. The Underground Railroad is replaced. It doesn't matter that it's got a culture diffusion arrow. This is discarded from the game. The American Revolution goes here. It would have been good if it was here, because if there's any agents on the card that you replace, they become revolutionaries and you place them here. Only once this is filled and it's viable will it become a successful revolution. But if the sphere where the revolution was launched has all its dissident squares full of dissidents with the same colour, you create what's called a people's hero. We take an agent from the pool, not from your board, not from your finance board, and install it as a revolutionary. Now, one thing we could have done, I suppose, this is feather candle. We look at our splays, feather candle. If we hadn't have taken the plebiscite operation, in fact have held back, if you make a revolution that's already in the market viable, then you get to add the revolutionary. That's called writing a manifesto. So if we'd have held back until the revolution was in, then capitalised this candle using the republicanism operation here, yeah, that would have made this viable, and then we would have had two agents here, 2 revolutionaries. But it's risky because there's obviously a chance that this would have disappeared and we would have missed our opportunity. And now it's a race, because if this gets pushed eastwards, see it's got the cultural diffusion arrow into here, if it happens a second time and we still haven't completed this revolution, then it's failed and disappears. If we reach the revolution phase with a successful revolution, so it's complete and viable, then we can modernise that sphere. Modernisation allows us to pass lots of laws, which is going to really hit the barriers, the slavers. Maybe we can free the Caribbean, all sorts of good stuff. But it's a race against time, because now we've got to refresh the market. And this is getting low, so we haven't got much time left. We're going to have to start getting more agents around the board, and we're going to need some of these impact icons to get more agents. There's lots of them out here.